Perfect. Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone is well. I'll just go through some updates before we actually begin our content part of the lecture. The first one is all ICE tasks have been graded. Your results are available on ARC right now. I think it's not yet published completely on Student Portal. It has been captured. So I think when OC Results decides to publish it, it will be available on your Student Portal, but you can check ARC for now. Secondly, there will be no more exceptions on any more ICE tasks. Those results were due yesterday. So obviously had to have them graded, etc., to be captured yesterday. So there will be no more ICE tasks that, that can be submitted right now. This session, we will be doing Learning Unit 2, Learning Unit 6, and Theme 2 of it, which is your Customer Relationship Manager part of it. Next week's session, we will be running through Business Ethics, and our last session will be on the 29th of May. And in that session, I will be running a revision session. So what I like to do there is just pull out from past papers, etc., just sort of commonalities, and give you some sort of examination pacer where you could focus on specific topics. You obviously need to go through the entire outline in terms of what the requirement is for the examination, but all I'm doing is just trying to aid you so you can put specific focus on some aspects. I do not set the paper. I just want to put it out there. So I do not know what is going to be part of your 2025 examination, but I can help steer you in the right direction, which is what we're going to do in the session on the 29th of May. I will try and get a pacer out to you by next week. So by the end of next week, hopefully by the time our next lecture starts, so that you can run through it and hopefully you come in to our last session with questions. So we have a structure that we can work towards. So I can run with whatever sort of revision I have, and then I'll keep your questions for like the last 20 minutes of the session, and we can just run with all of your questions then. Okay, so I hope that's fine with everybody. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly. So as I mentioned, we are doing Learning Unit 6 Theme 2. It is a fairly small theme. So I honestly don't think I'm going to keep you here for an entire hour. That's only if you have questions and we can go through it. You can see towards the end of the semester, I paced out the learning units and the themes so that we can spend a little bit more time on a theme and we don't have to rush through the content. But I'm so glad that we had the pacer because we were able to go over some really key concepts throughout the semester, and we didn't really rush through much modules. So I'm glad for that part of it. Okay, so as I said, today we are focusing on customer relationship management, which I think is quite a creative theme. And I did mention that when we went through the supplier portion of it. You can use your discretion. I think all of us are sitting in a framework, especially from a business perspective, where we have to deal with some sort of customer at some point. Whether it is a student, whether it is a man on the street, whether it's another corporate or blue chip company, they are considered a customer for all of us within our own specific industry. So when we speak about customer relationship management or a CRM, what do we mean within the supply chain? What sort of context? When we talk about this, we want to talk about the different strategies, the different practices, and the different technologies that a lot of businesses use to manage and analyze their customer satisfaction or their customers' interaction through data throughout the basic supply chain sort of life cycle that they have. The goal at the end of the day from a CRM perspective is, sorry, just give me 1 second. Just I'm so sorry about that. I did some online shopping and the driver chooses right now to do a delivery. Okay. Okay. So when we speak about CRM, the actual goal is to make sure that your customer has satisfaction. You also sort of foster a very long-term relationship with your customer, and you also try and optimize the overall efficiency of the supply chain itself. So when we talk about the CRM within supply chain management, you want to look at it from a very customer-centric approach, where you focus on understanding and you focus on meeting your customers' needs. And at the offset of any meeting, you want to understand what is your customer's expectation of you specifically. So this is how you would then foster a very customer-centric approach. You also want to integrate your customer's feedback into any sort of product development that you now want to do, any innovation you want to introduce to into your new product, into your production process, maybe even into your delivery process. Like, for instance, you don't want your customer to receive a delivery at 20 to 8 at night. Okay. So this is sort of the approach that you want to take. Then we want to look at it from a data analysis perspective and also data integration side, where you want to use the data from various touch points, whether it's a sales touch point, a marketing touch point, or even like an after sales touch point, where you want to gain as much insight as possible into your customers' behavior, into their different preferences. You may be an organization that has delivery to multiple customers, so man on the street. So it's very difficult to gauge what the preferences are going to be of those various people. But there's so many marketing and sales tools right now available in the market from a tech perspective. Like, for instance, if you have a whole host of, let's say, spreadsheets and data, you can pop that into like Power BI, for instance, and it'll be able to spit out, top routes or the highest spending customer. And then from there, you'll be able to put out order numbers and check what that customer ordered. So you know that the customer that was your top customer for this month ordered 25 items from you, and out of the 25, 20 was of a specific category. So that's the preference of the customer. Maybe it'll be nice if they were your top spending customer to pick up the phone, give them a call, maybe offer them a discount on the next item. So I know specifically. So I order clothing from a specific website online, and you basically create an account with them. And you can order all of your items, and for every R1 spent, you get 1 point. And when you reach, let's say, 1,000 points, you get maybe $100 off your cart. 2,000 points, you maybe get $200 off your cart. And so on and so forth. If it's your birthday, you get 10% discount. So these are various like promotional sort of experiences that you can have with your customer, taking into account what their preferences are. And it just keeps me going back to them because, number one, their stuff's nice. Number two, I can get discounts out of them if I keep ordering. So they do play to the psychology and the psychosis of people, as do many retailers and online companies. But it is nice to know that my likes are taken into account. Okay. Then you also want to use your sort of data analysis to be able to predict some sort of demand. You may manage your inventory. You can streamline your logistics. Like, for instance, if your customer runs sales, let's say seasonal sales, you're able to pull out from data exactly what that seasonal sales is. And let's say you're within the logistics environment, then you can now sort of upscale your resources to be able to account for that seasonal sale where the volumes are now amped up. So data analysis does help businesses a lot. You will see now, especially if you are maybe in the job industry, like looking for specific jobs, there's so much of opportunities as a data analysis or a business analyst where all you do is you sit behind a laptop and just analyze data. because it does. Data is king, and data speaks to a lot of information. Then we want to look at how, from an enhanced communication perspective, you want to be able to facilitate better communication and collaboration between your suppliers, your manufacturers, your distributors, as well as your customers. And you can also use different CRM systems to share the real-time information throughout your supply chain network. This is how you would then improve sort of agility, how you would improve some sort of responsiveness within your supply chain. It just allows for everyone to be talking the same language because they have the same information that they're working with. Then we look at personalized service. And this is where you would basically leverage your customer data to offer something that's more personalized, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, or whether it's just an experience for your customer. You want to be able to tailor some sort of marketing campaign or sales strategy based on customer segmentation, based on customer profiling, and data does help you with that once again. You also want to look at how best, from an order management or even from a sales management, how can you manage the sales process from a lead generation to now being an order fulfillment, so where your customer now orders. You want to be able to integrate your different systems like a CRM system or like an ERP system, where you can then streamline your order processing. You can streamline it from an inventory management perspective. So it does help facilitate your entire supply chain because you now know what you're talking about. And then the last one is performance monitoring. You want to be able to track your different KPIs, so your key performance indicators that's related to customer satisfaction. It's related to sort of delivery times, to service reliability, service quality. You want to use the data to identify different areas for how best you can improve, how best you can optimize the supply chain from an operations perspective or a production perspective. Okay, so that's your CRM within your supply chain management. Then we want to look at your customer life cycle specifically. And your customer life cycle is basically how well you can help in optimizing your supply chain activities to meet your customers' needs as effectively as possible at every one of these stages. So the first one is customer acquisition. So you can do customer acquisition through sales, which is your lead generation, whether it's through different marketing campaigns where you can generate interest in your product or even in your service. And these campaigns can be piloted or informed by your data analytics behind it, where you are able to reach now the right audience. And that's what you're pushing your information towards. And let's be honest, social media now, it's directed towards you specifically. If you're saying something to a friend, it's now on your feed page on Facebook, it's now a pop-up ad on any other social media. So this is how marketing campaigns are now being directed. When we speak about from an order fulfillment side, we want to talk about using sort of the data from a CRM to predict the demand and making sure that your supply chain is prepared to meet your new customer orders. And in that case, this is how we do demand forecasting. So you want to make sure that you have demand forecasting from that perspective in order for you to go forward. Then the next stage is customer engagement. How do you now onboard your customer? You want to be able to give them a very personalized experience. You want to give them communication, as much support as possible. And also you want to offer them some education and training on your actual product. So you want to give them different resources, tutorials to help your customer to understand and be able to use your product as effectively as possible. Because let's be honest, a lot of products don't come with the instructions. So you want to be able to give them either a video tutorial or a little pamphlet in there just to explain what your product basically is. And then you want to make sure you have product availability. So whether it's a real-time update, by using a different sort of CRM system that's able to provide a real-time update on what product is available, as well as what the delivery status of the product is. So here we're roping back into inventory management, we're roping back into warehouse management systems, where if an order is placed, it's now obviously picked from a shelf and the order is now fulfilled. It's now removed out of your cycle count on what your on what product is available on your shelf. So it's all now coming back into your supply chain. Okay. Then we want to speak about customer retention. Customer retention is quite big right now, especially if you are in whether it is a product or a service industry. The bottom line is you want your customers to keep coming back for more, and you want to retain them as much as possible. So the first one is you want to be able to provide a service, and you want to provide the service and the support. So you want to implement efficient customer sort of support processes that handles inquiries, they handle complaints, they handle any sort of returns. You want to streamline it as much as possible. I know now people are very much into the AI bot, speaking to, whether it's from a banking perspective or even from a logistics perspective, you're speaking to AI at the end of the day that's giving you the update that's basically on the system. If you want any more information, you have to call into either a centralized call center, most times a centralized call center, where you have to listen to the wonderful music that's played there in order for you to now get through to somebody to tell them what you require. So it's how well you can beef this up and provide the support to the customer that will, ensure that they keep coming back for more. And then you want to look at the feedback loop, which is how you can collect your customers' feedback to identify any pain points that they have or any problems they have with your product and areas for improvement within your supply chain. And you now try your best to now implement it within your current supply chain so that you can retain the customer. The customer can actually see that you're making changes. It's not always possible, because a customer sometimes is not always right, and the feedback that you get from them is not always, the best feedback. It's also a feedback that you really cannot initiate within your supply chain. So it needs to be tried and tested before you actually have to integrate it and implement it within your supply chain. And then we want to talk about customer growth, or customer sort of like from an expansion perspective. How best can you upsell and cross-sell? So, speaking about different product recommendation, you want to use your data analytics to identify different opportunities for how best you can upsell, and you can cross-trade based on your customers, maybe their purchase history or their different preferences, and maybe offer them, personalized offers or promotions, etc. And I know a lot of businesses spend a lot of time from an upselling and cross-selling perspective. So within my industry, within logistics, we look at it from what I like to call a horizontal and a vertical axis. So when I speak to my sales team or my CRM team, I now tell them, okay, bring in your customer sort of data file, and that's the entire book base. And we now look at it as which customers are using which services. So the business that I work in, there's various different types of services. We have courier, we have air freight, we have sea freight, we have road freight, we have international courier, we have logistics, we have shop and ship, we have retail. Okay, so those are all the different services. But now I want to understand from the different services which customers actually use us for which service. And then I go through each customer and I now tick, okay, I've got this customer for this product, etc. But then this customer is not using us on air freight. Why? Let's go in and ask them the question, do you do air freight? This is the benefit of air freight, etc. And this is how we're now going to sort of try and cross-sell them. What does work well with from a CRM approach is when we look at it from a horizontal perspective, we now need to look at who's our customer's customer and who's our customer's supplier. Okay, and how do we now get in to them? Because realistically, they're in the same industry, so there has to be some sort of logistics activity within them. And how best can I now approach them? Number one is a referral always. Your customer knows you best. Your customer now refers you to their customer and now refers you to their supplier. And that's how you now gain customer growth. Okay. So I hope I was pretty clear on how that works. I'm not 100% sure how the sales tactic would work on a product because I sell a service, but products may be a little bit more different, which I don't think will be very much more different, but it's how best you can sell to everyone. So I think, if you, let's say in the car industry or the sales industry, in that perspective, you can ask your customer for referrals. Maybe a family member is looking for a vehicle or somebody else is looking for a vehicle. And I know when I purchase my vehicle, I often get calls when there's a new model from the dealership. We now have a new model. Do you want to come and test drive it, etc.? And that's how they keep upselling the customer. Okay, and it's all down to basic communication and you being in front of the customer at the end of the day. Okay, then we want to talk about new product launches. You want to be able to have some sort of market insight. You want to be able to leverage the customer's data that you have to gain insight into different market trends, maybe your different customer needs. You want to be able to guide new product development. So now we're in an era of Gen Z. So maybe Gen Z is very different to what your millennials would like. So maybe we're going more into the Gen Z category, depending on what your product is and your service offering is. So you now need to gain market insight into what the Gen Z generation is wanting and asking for, as opposed to where your current selling market is probably between the ages of like 30 and 40, and I think that's where the millennials are now sitting in right now. Maybe that's where your target market is, but you now want to shift it into a different category. So you need to be looking at what new product launches you can do by using different market insights. Okay, then we have the different types of CRMs. Okay, so when we're looking at it from, they offer different functionalities. You have three, which is your operational, analytical, as well as your collaborative. And you'll see it's very similar to when we went through your supplier relationship management. So when we're looking at it from an operational perspective, their primary focus is on streamlining and automating your customer-facing processes. They want to automate some of your tasks, some of your follow-up, some of your lead management. You want to automate it on like a CRM system. Us internally, we use a system called Salesforce. Basically, your entire day is loaded onto a system called Salesforce. So at the end of the day, if I want to know what person A does, I go onto their Salesforce and I can see all of the activity for the day. So that is very much from an operational perspective, where they want to automate your sort of routine tasks. They want to, enhance your customer satisfaction through quicker response times, better services, that sort of thing. They just want to focus on like email horses, basically. They get an email with a query, they deal with the query pretty quickly. They also provide quite a unified view of customers' interactions, whether it's through sales, through marketing, through service departments, etc. Then when we look at it from an analytical perspective, their focus is on analyzing your customer data to gain different insights and to make informed decisions. Okay. And here they want to be able to provide very deep insight into your customers' behavior, into their preferences. They want to be able to make better decisions through data-driven strategies, because, you know, it's quite from an analytical perspective. And they want to be able to identify opportunities for cross-selling, upselling, any sort of personalization, etc. And then we have a collaborative CRM. So here they use collaboration and information sharing amongst various different departments. And they also use sort of external stakeholders, like what the customers feedback is, or what the supplier's feedback is, and they sort of collaborate between those stakeholders. And from this perspective, it does improve internal communication. It improves collaboration between all your stakeholders and all of your departments. It also gives you a little bit more consistency from a quality perspective, and gives you some sort of better relationship with the customer by making sure that all the departments are aligned, all the departments are informed, etc. My best type, or my ideal type of CRM right now, is anywhere between an analytical and a collaborative. An operational CRM, and I think I mentioned it when we spoke about it from a last week perspective, it's someone who goes in just to make sure that everything's okay. It's quite mundane task, etc. They just want to fix a problem quickly and walk out of there. Whereas someone that's more analytical focuses on how they can change your business. How can, by using their service and the information that they have currently, how they can actually make an impact in your business, and they become an extension of your business based on the information that they've learned, the data that they've pulled, or any sort of analytics that they've done in the background. Collaborative, you know, you want to do as much collaboration between all departments so that you can actually implement what you want quickly as possible. So for me, it's a mixture between an analytical and a collaborative CRM, and that will basically be an ideal senior sort of CRM, a type of CRM for me. Okay. All right, now we're going on to the different types of CRM models, right? The first one is what you call an IDIC model. And here it means identify, differentiate, interact, and customize. And from an identify perspective, you want to be able to recognize, you want to be able to gather as much information about your customer, about your suppliers, about any sort of stakeholder that's within the supply chain. When we talk about differentiation, you want to be able to segment your customers based on what is their value, what is their needs, what is their behavior, and you want to prioritize that. So when we're talking about differentiation, you want to be able to either focus on your customers that are not who scream the loudest, but who spend the most amount of money with you, basically. In business, in layman's terms, that's basically where your focus wants to be at. Then we want to speak about interacting. It's how you engage with your customer through various touch points in order for you to understand their needs and to understand what their preferences are. And then the last one is customize, is where you will personalize your service or personalize your product to meet the sort of unique need of your customer, or whether it's a unique need of a customer's industry. So if, for instance, I'll give you an example. I do international courier, and I walked into the fashion sort of industry, and then I wanted all of their imported samples from China. Currently, a lot of them were using the same service provider, and based on that, they were getting penalties because there's a lot of customs differentiation when it comes to bringing in samples international courier-wise. It needs to be at a specific value. It needs to be mutilated so that it's not for resale. It's being brought in as a sample. You need to pre-clear the item. You need to declare it at a specific tariff code, all of that. So I identified what the problem was, and then I went back as a collaborative person to different departments, and I now sat with the customs teams, the SARS teams, etc., the international team that runs the trade lane for China, and I now found a solution of how best I can bring in the sample. I went to that specific customer, and I now sold the solution to them. They loved it because they were now saving, and I quantified the solution, meaning I told them how much of money they potentially can save, not if they use me as the international courier partner, but on how much they'll save from a penalty perspective. Because they weren't doing things the right way, customs were charging them a penalty, and they were saving hundreds of thousands of rands if they had done it the right way. So I now told them, this is what I plan on doing, and I also plan on saving you X amount because you're not going to have any penalties. Solution was bought, brilliant. I now use that solution, which was quite a customized solution for that industry, at various different companies that were fashion importers. And I now started signing on a lot more business from a fashion perspective in international Korea, because I gave them a customized solution. Okay. Then we want to move on to the QCI model. Okay, and the QCI model is quality, customer, and interaction. And it's depending on what you want to use, whichever model you find is the best model. I think when you're talking about it from a salesy perspective, the IDIC model probably work a little bit better. And then if you're looking at it from a CRM perspective, probably the third model will work better. So QCI, quality customer interaction. So when we're looking at it from a quality perspective, you want to be focusing on delivering sort of high quality products or services that is quite consistent throughout your supply chain. When you're looking at it from a customer perspective, you want to keep your customer at the center of all of your supply chain strategies, of all your supply chain, sort of direction, and any sort of decision that you make. And when we speak interaction, you want to sort of foster ongoing interaction with customers in order for you to build a strong enough relationship so you can gain as much insight as possible. Okay. And then the last one is what we call the Gartner model. And the Gartner model is how you acquire, enhance, and retain. So when we're talking about acquire, you want to be able to focus on attracting new customers through sort of supply chain solutions that you can offer to them that meet your market demands. When we speak on enhance, you want to improve the relationship with your existing customer by providing them some sort of support, whether it's from a reporting perspective, data integrity, or data analysis side, whatever your customer basically requires, you want to be able to provide it for them so that you enhance the relationship with them. And then the last one is retain. You want to be able to develop retention strategies that keep your customers by you, and you continue basically maintaining high levels of satisfaction, high levels of loyalty on both the product or the service category. Okay. And then the last one that we want to go through right now is what we call the CRM sort of implementation process. And when you look at your sort of CRM implementation process, you have different sort of softwares that manage your sort of customer relationship, tries to optimize your business processes. So you want to be able to leverage the benefits of that CRM process so that you can enhance your customer satisfaction, you can increase your sales, you can retain those customers, and you can improve as much efficiency within the business as possible. So a lot of businesses have different sort of implementation processes, and the actual implementation process of a customer relationship management, whether it's a software or whatever, it's to make sure that you have planning, you have execution, you have some sort of management so that you can align it with different company goals, you can align it with integration, etc. So it's very much, if you think about it, if you have a new customer that you've onboarded, and I'm speaking more from a corporate perspective than from a man on the street side. So let's say, for instance, you've signed on a blue chip company, and I'm speaking purely from a logistics perspective. You've signed on a blue chip company customer. I personally have a sort of 10-step implementation process that we run from when you have a salesperson handing over to a sort of customer relationship manager. And from that perspective, it's how you now onboard your customer, making sure that all levels are done, from testing to integration to software to trial periods to to POCs, different proof of concepts, right down to when you're doing your first KPI report with them. Okay, so every CRM, all the processes will obviously vary, different industries, different processes, but sort of how it looks like, the main one will be preparation and planning. You want to be able to determine what your aim is, what you want to achieve, um, whether it's improving customer services, increasing sales, whatever you've basically sort of planned and gave as a solution to your customer, you now need to understand what your objectives are from that perspective. You want to be able to form some sort of project team, whether it's a cross-functional team between various departments from a collab perspective. You assign different roles and responsibilities to them. And you want to be able to identify, this is where the inefficiencies lie, and these are your areas for improvement. So this is where your planning and preparation comes into play. Then when we look at it from a vendor selection perspective, you want to be able to look at, from a research and development perspective, who is the best person for it. Whether you're looking at it from an outsourcing perspective, are you going to maybe outsource somebody to do the service? Or if you're running it from a product perspective, then, are you now going to be providing the service, or are you also outsourcing that? Or is there components now being outsourced? So whatever that falls in, you need to be able to evaluate who that vendor is. You want to look at it from a customization and a configuration. So whether it's data integrity, how best you can customize the solution that fits that particular customer. Then training. Everyone has systems, especially if you're in the service industry, you want to be able to run through different systems with that specific customer, be able to develop different training materials, whether it's guides, videos, FAQs, those sort of things. And then be able to clearly communicate sort of the benefits to them, to the customer. This is the reason why you decided to change. This is the reason why you decided to use me, and keep harping on the effectiveness and the efficiency of it. Then testing and deployment, and this is where your proof of concept comes into play. Whatever you've now implemented and put into place, you now want to test it to make sure that it's all working, whether you want to do something that's from a functional testing perspective, when's your go live date, all of these need to now be planned. And then your post implementation and continuous improvement is sort of like, once you've now done the implementation, your customers using you, they're buying from you, what is now the feedback? Has it been good? Has it been bad? What can you now do to improve yourself? And this is the basics of it. It obviously changes, in terms of like the nitty-gritty within it. But in essence, that is what the CRM process sort of looks like from an implementation side. Okay, and I think that brings us to the end of our CRM concepts, or our learning unit 6, theme 2. Is there any questions? Okay. I see we are all good. That's brilliant. So I will see you guys next week for Learning Unit 3. I think that's Business Ethics. And then the week thereafter, we will run through our revision for our examination. Have a fantastic evening, and I will see you guys next week. All of this will be available on ARC. Recording will be available on YouTube. Thank you so much.